another open bracket session which was organized by the FOSS community of IIT with the collaboration of FOSS community of Uva Wellassa University of Sri Lanka. So today we are going to discuss about the blockchain, and we have Mr. Shamilan Somasundaran as our guest speaker today. So before I hand over the session to him, I would like to give a brief description about him. So he is the co-founder and chief executive officer at Mifron, which is a blockchain as a service platform that recently won the SARC Startup Award. And he's a blockchain consultant
Recording in
for
progress.
multiple organizations and startup globally. He has five plus years of experience in decentralized application solution architecture and development. Meantime, holding a master's in big data analytics from Robert Gordon University, Scotland, and uh, engineering in software engineering from the University of Westminster, UK. Also, he is a certified blockchain solution architecture, and he is the co-organizer of Colombo Blockchain Meetup too. And he has delivered more than 50 plus blockchain talks and conducted sessions at universities, organizers, and conferences and meetups. So I would like to invite Mr. Shamilan to go through this session. Mr. Shamilan, it's over to you.
Hi, Brain. Hope you all can hear, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Thanks for the kind introduction first. And it's my pleasure to be in this first community organized meetup regarding blockchain and trying to share some of my knowledge and whatever I can share with you in this short period of time that hope that will be some initial idea about blockchain and basically not going much deep on technical sides, but giving you an overall idea about what is blockchain, how it works, and why we need blockchain. And we will touch upon some use cases or projects that you can easily try to build for your university projects or else maybe as pet projects that on your free time. So that is pretty much what we are going to cover today. And I'll share my screen and we'll dive into the topic. I hope all you can see the screen, right?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah, so as mentioned, like we'll start with like pretty much about what is blockchain and how it works, and then we'll see like how you can use blockchain or the purpose of blockchain. So as you all can see here, like this is pretty much about the current adoption rate that like from 2018, 2019, and 2020, how blockchain adoption started to grow more and more. And as we experienced that in 2021 as well. And it's not only something that is happening outside Sri Lanka, but as we can see nowadays, there are plenty of blockchain projects that are done in Sri Lanka, and there are multiple startups who came out of Sri Lanka regarding blockchain, and as well as even government and even in ministry cabinets also they are talking about blockchain and cryptos as well. So if we can see this chart, so this is pretty much about international survey done in 2020. They have done it. They do this every year, and we can see that every year it's increasing the percentages. So people were telling that it's critical top 5 strategies that they are focusing as a blockchain in the next year, as well as there are executives and teams believes that blockchain is a key technology for the organizations or projects that they're doing in future. And some are believing that around 80% that if they don't dive into blockchain or don't get started with blockchain based applications or not transforming their businesses into blockchain, they'll lose a key competitive advantage comparing to the other competitors or other parties in that same business. So this is pretty much the global adoption that we are seeing blockchain, and blockchain is making an impact or forcing different businesses to move towards blockchain. And when we see blockchain, we can see like it's a technology that is used by different levels of businesses. So there are different technologies that is used only by startups, or there are different technologies that used only by governments or non-profits. And there are some technologies that we've seen in past which used only by organizations or high level enterprises. But blockchain is something that we can see or we can witness that real time. It's used by even from startups towards the government scale level. So cross industry applications are built on top of blockchain, and it's used for different use cases as starting from banking, finance, from the initial point that ever comes, as well as nowadays we can see like there are plenty of healthcare applications or telco transportations, real time tracking and traceabilities for logistics and supply chain, as well as there are some projects done for government, public sectors, and non-profits as well. So we can see a wide range of adoption in terms of blockchain in multiple countries, as well as now we can see that happens in Sri Lanka, as I mentioned, from governments, non-profit, and startups as well, which we can see it later part of the presentations. So we'll go into the main topic as what is blockchain. So I am maybe some of you who coming to this session maybe knows that what is blockchain or how it works, but I'll try to go as a basic intro about what is blockchain and how it works as well. So if someone new to this, they can get an understanding. And what is blockchain is basically, in a non-technical way, you can explain it as it's something like a chain that is connected with multiple blocks. So as the same as the name suggests, it's like the blocks are there and each of the blocks are connected by the chain, which is pretty much the image suggests as well. So you can have every boxes contains a list of transactions or list of events that happens, and then each of these boxes connect with the previous block so that they will be maintained that chain. So it's pretty much similar like a ledger how we used in past. So when we have a record in ledger, we usually write it in every line. And then once after a period of time, like we can go and review these things and we can make sure that we can skip a line and write it in another line, as well as we can go back and modify it as well. So if you're going to modify something, it always comes as a new update or new line there. So this is pretty much about the non-technical one. But when it comes to the actual reasons or actual purpose or a vision of blockchain is pretty much about transferable assets to an untrusted party in a trusted way. So this value can be, or valuable assets can be anything such as money, or else it can be data, or it can be goods, or it can be land or properties. So any valuable assets, if you want to transfer to an untrusted party in a trusted manner, so that is pretty much what blockchain is doing. So if it has cryptos, so that is one of the initial use cases that are built on top of blockchain, where people try to transfer money as a valuable assets to an untrusted party in a more trusted manner without a middleman. So that is pretty much we can extract and apply it for any type of industries or any type of use cases when it comes to data, or when it comes to land properties, or when it comes to different valuable assets. We can easily transfer to another untrusted party in a trusted manner. So let's see like the history about blockchain. So when it started in 2009, that is the period that it's got more peak, or people started to know about this technology, and then it's actually become more popular after 2012. But the technology that initially started somewhere in 1991 to 2008 period, not as the name as blockchain, but there are multiple components that blockchain using are already exist. So something like from the cryptographics towards the initial way of transferring money to cryptography methods, so which already exist there from 1991 from Stuart Haber and Scott. Those are the people like initially tried out these things, and there are plenty of researches done how they can transfer money, specifically money between another person without having a middleman, as such as banks or any money transferring people like any applications, or else any industries or any organizations. So how you can transfer this money to another person without involving another party inside that to fill that trust gap. So this is already started from that time of a period. And then when it comes 2009, that is the first time when Satoshi released the Bitcoin white paper. So Bitcoin white paper is the first paper that we can see a word as blockchain, where they use blockchain technology to build bitcoins. So on top of blockchain, they built these bitcoins. So from that time onwards, blockchain is started to get more popular, and the word started to spread as Bitcoin. It's the price is going up, and then people can see that they can buy these bitcoins or cryptocurrencies, and then they can transfer to unknown parties or untrusted parties in a trusted way, and they can exchange for goods or exchange for services. So that is one of the initial kickoff points for blockchain, kickoff point for blockchain. And from that 2012-13 period, it's always about altcoins, so or things that we call it as different type of cryptocurrencies followed by the Bitcoin process. So there are multiple coins come in that period, and the actual break point comes in 2014 when Ethereum comes into the market. So Ethereum is totally different than what Bitcoin is doing or what Bitcoin does at that time, because Bitcoin is more towards focused on money value transaction. But what Ethereum started to focus is more towards if someone can transfer money between another party in a trusted manner without with an unknown person in a trusted manner. So how they can apply that to other industries or other use cases as well. So where they can transfer contracts between an untrusted party in a trusted manner, or else make agreements with an untrusted party in a trusted manner without middleman, or else transferring properties or vehicles or data with another person in a trusted manner, how they can do that. So that's where from 2014, that's what happens, where Ethereum launched their initial chain as along with their white paper, and then people started to build contracts on top of Ethereum, where these contracts, what is called as smart contracts, maybe most of you heard about these. So smart contracts are something like a business logics that we are running in our central machines. So we can easily use these uh, logics, and we can simply host these logics inside the blockchain itself. So without just hosting or using a money inside blockchain and transferring that one, as we know that people can't go and update these monies, or people can't go and update the transactions. What if we host our application logic inside the blockchain itself? So then that's also become more secured and more transparent. Anyone who wants, they can see these logics and they can audit these logics, but no one can able to go and change a logic, or else no one can able to go and update any logics as it's hosted in a place. So that is more suitable for agreements or contracts logics. So they started to do that, and then after that, it's picked up from there, and people started to use it for supply chains, for tracing these information, so tracing the data, so history about a product, and using for medical records, ticket managements, law firms using it for case histories. So there are different aspects that they used, and different the ways they used Ethereum in different ways, and they started to build more applications on top of that. And from 2016-17 period is always about applications, and we call it as DAO, where the decentralization applications, and dApps, decentralized apps and decentralized application logics. We started to build more of those things. And 2018 19 period also, it's more towards these applications. And then nowadays we are more moving in towards tokenization as well. It started in 2018-17 period, but it's get more popular recently, as you may heard about NFTs and the artworks. So there are more tokenization applications happen these days, where people tokenizing their lands towards business shares, towards different aspects that they can easily tokenizing it, and they are issuing to different parties. So let's see how blockchain works. So for an example, like as this is something I usually do it to explain blockchain in a more non-technical manner, where I do sessions. So it's something like, for an example, like if we see like we have around 60, 70 people in this session. So if we can take it as somewhere around, if you're doing this in auditorium, or if we are doing it in a particular place, then we can see like all 60 or 70 people will be sitting in this session. And then if I want to transfer some money to an untrusted party or unknown person from this audience, then the easiest process for me is usually I can take that person and I can give this money to them. But the problem comes is there are high chances where the person can come and say that I didn't give them money, or else I can go and say that I gave more than what I need to give. For an example, if I want to give 100 rupees, I can say that I gave 1,000 and I want my money back. Or if the person can come back and say that he needs to receive from me 100 and he received only 10 rupees. So there's no way that we can prove what happened there. So this is one of the reasons we need to rely on third parties or middlemen. So what I can do it is I can either call a person from this auditorium or a place, and we both do this transition in front of that person or in front of a couple of people. So then those people comes as a evidence or witness for this transition or what is the event happened there. So if me or else the person I transferred, or for example, if X comes and ask about their money, or else if this transaction is not happened, so if they try to fault play this, then what happens is these two people who witness this transaction will come key in that point, and they'll be try to say that they are the witness and they saw what happens at that point. So if they want to change this process, what need to be done is this person need to, either me or the Mr. X need to go and convince these one or two people who act as a middleman, which is kind of easiest process, because convincing a couple of people, either bribing them or else either convincing them that this is what happens, and try to fall into their side, which is easy as there's a less amount of people. So this is one of the reasons later part of the history that we move into trusted organizations or trusted middle parties, which act as banks or as applications or uh, companies that we use to transfer monies, such as finance or as MoneyGram or different applications. So this is one of the reasons that we go to bank, because we thought I'm transferring directly to him. I can, if I know him, that works. But if I don't know him or it's an untrusted party, then I can simply go to bank and transfer this money. So then bank do this event or do this action, and then that bank comes as evidence for this transaction, and both parties can't go and say that we didn't transfer or they didn't receive it. So this is one of the reasons that happens. But there are instances that happens past, like these middle parties having a more power than what the other party is doing this transition or parties involved in this transition, and they take more control of this, and they try to increase their service charges or transaction fees, or else they try to manipulate these transactions, so they try to control over these transactions, so which is comes as one of the major issues that we see in past in the world, and that is one of the reasons why blockchain comes more handy or cryptos comes more handy in that case. So for example, if we imagine like we are sitting in this auditorium with these 60 or 70 people, and if I want to do this 100 rupees transaction, I can simply show it in front of all of you. As there are 100 people there, I can show it to 100 people, and then I can do this transition to Mr. X. So then what happens is, if later part, if mistake, so I comes and say that this transaction is not happened, or else I transferred 1,000 rupees instead of 100, then all 100 of you will comes as evidence and witnesses, and then you can say that no, this is only happens as 100 rupees, and you've seen these things, and it's simply recorded in your brains. So this is where the blockchain comes handy, because blockchain, what happens exactly is, when there's a transaction happens, it goes and store it inside these nodes. So which we called as nodes is simply as computers all around the world who are using Bitcoin blockchain, or else who want to know these transactions, they run their own nodes, which stores the history about all the transaction that happens in Bitcoin from the starting points towards now. So each of these transactions will be recorded there, and everyone knows that it's very difficult to change it and very difficult to manipulate it. It's exact similar concept as what will happens if we do it in front of 100 people as well. Because if I do it in 100 people, for mistakes or me to convince these 100 people is very difficult, because convincing two people is very easy. But convincing 100 people means at least we need to convince 51 people to believe that what we are saying, or else we need to bribe 51 people to do this, act this bad work or do this fault play. But to do that one, it's too costly as well as too time consuming or time wasting process. So this is what exactly happens in blockchain. As it's a decentralized platform, the records are stored in hundreds or millions of nodes. So when it comes to Ethereum, it's like trillions of nodes are storing these informations. So when there's that much of a nodes are storing, at least you need to change 500 million of nodes to believe that this transition is not happened, or you need to update some transition. You need to know where these nodes are located, and you need to hack these nodes or hack these machines, and then you need to update these records based on what you want to do. And that is one of the first layers of blockchain security comes, and there are multiple other layers where the cryptography comes, and proof of work like consensus mechanism come to make it more difficult to make these changes. And as well as there are different security layers that blockchain is following. So it's pretty difficult to do it within that short time of period inside that 500 million of nodes or 500 million of nodes. So there's no such cases as we've seen in past, like where the Bitcoin is got hacked or as Ethereum is got hacked. There are some bugs to identified and all, but there's no kind of a major hacks where the people goes and change these things or update these transactions. So this is one of the reasons, as we can relate to this, as we are doing some transition in front of 100 people is this difficult. Then let's imagine you are doing some transition, or it can be, it's not need to be only money, but it can be a data transfer, or it can be a asset transfer like houses or valuable items. Whatever you're transferring into this, it's stored in these millions of nodes, so then it's become more difficult to change these things. So let's see like why we need blockchain. So we've seen like how what is blockchain and how it works. So we'll see like why we need blockchain. So we are witnessed like from the past, like each of the industry revolutions, it's changed some of the ways that we do or we work or our day-to-day approaches. So from the industry 1.0, it's more towards steam powers and mechanization and waving looms, and 2.0, it's more towards mass production and electrical energy. And we've seen in 3.0, it's almost about automation and computers. And 4.0 is all about the Internet of Things and networks. So when it comes to Internet of Things and networks and connectivity, so that's where the blockchain comes in more handy, because in the past we've seen that always a middle person hand controlling these things, and we can easily transfer these information, so valuable assets or anything between those middle parties. But when it comes to 4.0, it's always about a network of things, and people need to transfer different items between different people, and most of the times these people are untrusted parties or unknown parties. So transferring something between them and to in order to do some other activities, it becomes very difficult if we don't have a system that can be act as so fast to provide that trust, fill that trust gap in between those two untrusted parties. So this is one of the main reasons why we need blockchain these days. And the other thing is, like, if you see evolution, we evolved the way that we watch movies. So those days we go to theaters and watch movies, or we buy cassettes and watch movies. But nowadays we can sit at home and we can watch whatever the movie that we want at our comfort zones. And when it comes to buying products, we change the way we buy products from Amazon, Alibaba, Daraz, or different applications. And the way we travel, it's always changed. Like previously, we need to go out of the house and we need to find a taxi, and then we need to go to the place. But nowadays, we can just sitting home, and then we can book our trips, and the taxi will comes to our home and pick us. The same way like Facebook, a bit old, but then it's changed the way that we connecting with people, or interacting with people. And the way that Uber Eats changes the way we eating foods or ordering foods, or our day-to-day usual process that we are working for buying products or foods is changed by after the Uber Eats games. But there are some aspects in humans' lives which is not changed, and one of that thing is trust. So as I'm talking more about trust in this whole process, as trust is one of the key components or its key purpose why blockchain is more famous, or is why we need blockchain, and as well as why this global adoption I mentioned, what is the reason that behind that. So it's all about trust. So trust is one of the basic things that with humans lives, so we do everything based on trust. So when it comes to relationships, or when it comes to friends, or when it comes to family, or when it comes to transferring something, money, or any kind of information, so it's always we do based on the trust levels. So we share some information with some people if we have more trust, so we share less information with some people if we have less trust. So everything that we do in our lives, the aspects is based on trust, whether it can be business, or whether it can be applications, or whether it can be relationships. So as I mentioned, relationships, business, or even if you want to buy products. So even if you want to do businesses, you usually do it with trusted parties or trusted persons, or else, I mean, either you have a direct trust on them, or else you have someone who knows them, so you do the businesses on top of that trust. Or else you buy products from trusted brands or trusted parties, because you have trust on them and you have seen them for a while, and you witness that your parents buying these same brands, so you always tend to buy from that particular brand whatever the products they release. And when it comes to applications, we always use trusted applications. So people nowadays not using much of WhatsApp, because we've seen that it's not trustable one, or Facebook, where they're collecting our data, and also people always give importance to the trust. and then give importance to that privacy as well as trust. So they usually move to different applications where they can have more trust on the process or the way that application works or the way that we interact with that applications. And we don't usually use the application which is not trustable ones. And when it comes to transitions also, we do it based on the trust. So as trust is more basic in our human's life, which is almost like kind of underrated when it comes to the importance what we give for other aspects in our lives. But whatever we do in life, it's always relies based on trust. So the most expensive thing in the world is trust, and it can usually takes years or a longer period of time to build trust with applications or products or individuals. And it's always just a matter of second to lose it. So that we witness like in different type of aspects in our lives, and even if we take it as a applications levels, we seen like Google or Facebook, when there's someone not trust that product, then you can see that most of the people are moving towards. And recently we witnessed something like when Ronaldo is like not showing the Coca-Cola in the press conference, we can see that he is not having trust on that, and the people who is following them, or people who are believing him his attitudes, so they were like not following that as well, because they have the trust on him, and then that is replicating into their share values and the market as well. So which happens usually in multiple use cases or multiple industries, as everything is kind of connected with the trust. So when we see the evolution of trust, as we see in the industry 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and now 4.0, those days, people, as I mentioned, we lived in a closed circles or closed groups. And usually we use a middle person and we do these transitions because that person ideally knows both parties, and it can be as groups or it can be individuals. They knows both, and we can do it. But then when it comes to uh, expansion of humans, where we expanding to different countries and different parties, different parts of the world, it's very difficult for that one person to build this trust. So because the humans are trying to move different parts of the world, and it's very difficult for one person to maintain it. So that's where the middleman comes as an organization. So it's evolved as organizations, as banks or something, where we can be in a different part of the world. We can try to interact with another part of the world person in a more trusted manner for money transaction specifically. We can do this through middleman organizations, and even if it is comes data or different aspects, we can easily do it through that. And later what happens is, even these middleman organizations or middle trusted organizations were not trusted enough to provide that gap or fill that gap. So what happens is the applications comes into play. So if we take now, like previously we trust, like I mean, easiest example is we trust some food chains or hotel chains that we in past, like if we, for an example, if we trust Chinese Dragon, we directly make a call to Chinese Dragon and get a food, because we trust that chain or trust that hotel. So there are multiple like McDonald's or Burger King, we trust them and we make the order. But then nowadays what happens is that trust is replaced by an application where we trust Uber Eats app, and then we can make orders from any shops that we want. So previously we don't go and do an online order from another unknown shops, even though if they provide deliveries, we don't make that orders because we don't have the trust. But now we trust this application, and based on that application trust, we can easily able to do these transactions in a more seamless manner. But as you can see, every evolvement that we gone through, there's a huge part that played by these middle parties or the uh, third party role. So these are the people that always control, and we never evolve in a different way where we don't have these middle parties and do it. It's always the role that the middle party is playing, it's evolved, but it's not changed without completely. So that is something like this, where two entities can do these transitions without getting involved by a middle party or a middleman. So this is what blockchain is actually doing. As I mentioned in the start, two untrusted parties can do any transition without a middleman or a third party. So that trust gap, because we don't have trust in those two people, that is why we bring these different parties into this scenario. So if some technology can provide that trust or fill that trust gap, then we don't need those people, and we can easily do these transitions or any events in between those two entities. So these two entities can be two individuals, or else it can be an individual and an application, or it can be two applications. So it can be different type of entities. which can fit into this flow. So the reason that we need these middlemans previously, it's basically transparency, ownership, and high security. So when we want to do some transactions or things, we need to have high transparency on that, and we need to have full ownership on that, and we need to have high security. So there's no such technology in the past that provided all these three things, which is one of the reasons that we always rely on one of the parties to either provide us security or provide us ownership, banks for a scenario, or else provide us the transparency for the transition. So this is one of the reasons. And this is what happens with blockchain, where it basically provide these three things. So basically blockchain, the basic characteristics of blockchain is come from, apart from trust, it's always about transparency or openness and ownership and high security, and along with some other things as anonymity and privacy as well. So this is one of the hash one reasons why blockchain is more popular or getting more popular in different industries, because as I mentioned, trust is one of the baselines in humans, whether we use applications or whether we buy products or whether we interact with another party or doing businesses. So all these industries or all these startups or governments, they knows that trust is more valuable thing for them. So that is one of the reasons they're using blockchain to build that trust even more stronger with their other entities. So for an example, business, they use blockchain to build trust within their customers. So then that is bring more value for them. And even if it's their governments, they always relies on the trust with their people. So if the citizens are having a trust on the governments, only they can run it. So this is one of the reasons why governments using blockchain to provide that openness and transparency to gain that more trust. And if it comes to nonprofit, they always need to build that trust with their donors. So if the donors are not trusting them, then they can run that. So they want blockchain to put and easily build that trust, because if you bring any third party into the scene, then it's not that 100% trust is there, because these parties have high power or else high monopoly to manipulate these other parties who are involved in that chain. So this is the one of the reasons that why blockchain is more important, or why we need blockchain, and is basically to improve that trust. So that is the key uh, takeaway that you can take from this session, where you can see if you want to build any applications or if you want to do some blockchain projects, the easiest way you can see whether blockchain can fit or not is by evaluating how much trust involved in that use case, or how much trust involved in that project, and or else is there any third parties that are involved to build this trust already. So how you can replace them by easily using blockchain. So that is one of the easiest ways you can see whether blockchain is suitable for a particular use case or a project or a particular idea. So let's see some of the interesting use cases. So finance, as I mentioned, is one of the first industries that got disrupted by blockchain, because cryptocurrencies is the first use case built on top of a blockchain. So this is one of the reason that it's got disrupted much. So nowadays, finance industries, there are multiple banks in other countries using blockchain for simple as KYCs of the customers, or else doing transaction recording or tracing of the tracking of the transaction history and audits, as well as insurance companies are using blockchain for medical insurance claims directly with the hospitals or insurance providers and the hospitals, as well as there are different insurance frauds happens in the past. So they want to eliminate those things by more transparency and trust. They are using blockchain for that. And we have seen like multiple countries even building their own cryptocurrencies, or allowing people to use their digitized currencies through blockchain to build that economy comes up based on a more transparent and trustable manner. And their applications happens for different governments in other countries use it for treasury funds, or else even using it for fund tracking and tracing, that they can make sure that some parties are not taking more money from the government, or not doing it in an illegal manner, or not spending the money in different ways. The other one is medical. So medical is also another important industry that got changed by the blockchain. So one of the aspects that it's changed is specifically the initial things are pharmaceutical traceabilities and tracking. So when it comes to medical pharmaceutical products, tracing and tracking is very difficult, because there are so much of counterfeit drugs comes into the market every day, and it's very difficult to make this process, and it's at the same time it's highly important to build that tracing and tracking as well. So this is one of the reasons why uh, blockchain used in this to do some traceabilities and trackings in pharmaceutical products. And even recent times that we can see that COVID vaccine also going through blockchain-based tracking and tracing in multiple countries. And apart from that, medical records for a particular patient, it's more sensitive information. Previously, it's stored in hospitals or it's stored in a particular applications. But nowadays, people understand that my medical information is my particular asset or it's something I own. So they usually take control of these assets where people can own the medical records and they can provide access for doctors or hospitals to view those things. So there are plenty of applications out there where they do this exact process, because when the hospitals or third party controlling these history, they usually tend to sell these things to pharmaceutical companies or different third party research labs to make process. So people wants to own this one, so then they can sell these things on behalf of them and they can earn the money, because it's something that they own, as well as not about selling it, but it's something that patient history or health history, it's something that close to a particular person, so they want to usually keep that privacy and ownership over that as well. And as well as in medical, like there are some applications done where the clinical trials were done through blockchains, the records makings, because when you are doing clinical trials, it's always sensitive information will be passed, so they want to be goes through in a more trusted and traceable manner or auditable manner, where they can any parties who are involved in that can be see these things, or only they can see, and they can audit at any time as well. And supply chain is one of the major industry that got disrupted by blockchain so far, comparing to kind of similar impacts of what happens with medical as well. The reason is we've seen that again the counterfeit products that comes into the market that's make more difficult for a genuine product makers to compete with these things. So they want to have a way that they can show that their product is more a credible one, or if their product is more genuine one. So they want to show this supply chain history from farm to shelf. So then if someone comes with the counterfeit products, it's very easy to distinguish two of these items as well. So one of the aspects is we can see like mostly it's used in organic products. So because the thing is, if you go to a supermarket now, like you can see that there's a separate shelf for organic vegetables or foods or products, and there's another shelf for non-organic ones. So what is the difference is the price. So you can see that organic ones always priced high, but there's no way that you can validate whether it's organic or not. Because it's mentioned board as organic, we usually pay high price and we buy these products. What happens in blockchain is even there's application happens in Sri Lanka for tracing these organic products in from the farm to shelf. What happens is you usually scan, if you're going to buy a product, you can simply scan a QR code in that product, and you can see when it's seeded, when it's farmed, and when it's harvested, and when it comes to warehouse. You can see all these histories from the blockchain, and you can trust that process as well as it's on blockchain. And at the same time, everyone knows that no one can go and change these informations later after it's entered. And there are other aspects of supply chain as well. There are multiple automobile companies are using blockchain for tracing and tracking their parts and vehicles, and as well as I mentioned, pharmaceutical is one of the other things. So I'll go a bit more deep into this use case, so then you can get more easy understanding as it's common for everyone. So food supply chain is something that is usually connected with multiple parties. So it's not something that one person can do it. So usually it's produced from a farm. So they add, for an example, if it is orange, they get these oranges and then they add different information to these oranges and maybe organic certificates to these oranges. And then once they harvest it, they can add that date that they harvested as well. And then there's a mechanisms like tokenizations, it comes into play here. They can create exact amount of tokens for these oranges. So for an example, if they harvested like 10 kgs of orange, they can create like 10 coins, so which each coin is represented to 1 kg. So they can directly transfer these 10 coins to the factory or a warehouse, which makes sure that there's no counterfeit products comes into that, because if they own 10 coins, that means they own 10 kgs as well. So if someone producing, like if it comes as 11 kg, then they knows that there's 1 kg of counterfeit products comes into that. And they can attach different processing data, and then they can bottle this as juices. And then even in through the blockchain, they can split these into different packages or different batches, and they can transfer these to the vehicles. And even there are some process or some companies, they're planting IoT devices in this process, where the devices itself is transforming or sending these data without human involvement. And there are devices planted in these factories or else in these transporting trucks where they're sending these Celsius informations where they maintain it in the correct temperature or not. And once it's come to factory, it's usually end of the day in the shelf, you can find this particular bottle. So in the bottle, what happens is you can go and scan a QR code. It will be take you through the whole process up to the farm where it's harvested. You can see the whole history about this supply chain. So the best part is you can easily achieve this through without blockchain as well, where you can put this in database and you can show it to the customer. But what is the difference is if you're showing to the database and showing to the customer, it's always stored in the database, and there are high chances where the database admins can go and change this information easily, or if the developers can change it. And if not, this, as I mentioned, this supply chain, so multiple applications like this, it's controlled by multiple parties. So one party who have more power, they can simply go and manipulate these informations easily. So that is one of the reasons that if you're showing this to a difference that you're showing to a application or a website, and you're showing that with the proof from blockchain. So if someone see this information, it's not that only they're seeing this, they can make sure that it's something that they're seeing is what happens actually in the starting point where the farmer entered this data. At that time, what is entered, that's the same thing they are seeing now, as well as they can cross-check this with the blockchain transaction anytime to prove that is there any manipulations happens in between. So similar like that, there are more other applications as well, like charities or energies, real estate, transport. So multiple industries will use blockchain to build that trust. So as I mentioned, charity, they usually build this trust with donors, or when it comes to media, they build the trust with the viewers. When it comes to legal, they build the trust with clients or citizens. And when it comes to education, there are applications, even some happens in Sri Lanka, where certificates were provided through blockchain to build the trust with or the credibility of that certificates. And as I mentioned, insurance, governments, music used for to control the pirate copies, and then they can more towards build that trust with the people who are buying these things, that they can show that it's a genuine product and they can build that trust. And apart from that, there are like 50 plus other blockchain real world use cases out there. So if you want, like, I mean, you can use multiple real world blockchain or day-to-day life blockchain applications. So if you someone like who is using browser, so you can easily go and get a Brave browser, so BRAV. So Brave is a browser that is built on top of a blockchain where it's contrast towards what browsers we are using currently, because if you're using Google Chrome or Firefox, as we know, it's usually taking our information, so tracking behind us or following us, whatever we are searching or whatever we are doing. So when it comes to Brave, it's awfully anonymity because there's no email verifications or anything like that when you're creating it. So simply you can create this browser and you can go and create an account based on a blockchain key. So as blockchain keys comes as random numbers, so that provides the anonymity or privacy for the user without something that if for an example, like if my name is like Sharmila and search these things, it makes more valuable than ABCD123, a key that search these things, because there's no identity link with that. So that is what Brave is doing. And other important thing is, I mean, other interesting fact is, like, if you're using Brave, uh, it's ad free as well, so you can block all the advertisements that are coming, or all the scripts that are running behind these browsers or the websites that you're going. And if you're going to YouTube or something, you can watch anything ad free. And the other thing is, if you're watching it, these advertisements, or if you're enabling it to watch, then you can earn it as well. They're Brave coins, so they usually incentivize people as well. So similar like that, there's application like Steemit, which is exactly same as what Medium is doing in the centralized world. So you can write blocks in a more decentralized manner. And then if you are writing it there, or you can commenting, or as you are voting, similar like the claps in Medium, whatever you're doing action, you can get incentivized from their coins as well. And similar like that, there are applications like Storj or IPFS, where it's more like a file storage mechanisms like Dropbox, where you can use those things. So different applications you can choose day-to-day life. So then that is one of the easiest ways that you can start into blockchain, where you use something, so you know like how the process works before you started building. And in Sri Lanka, if you take blockchain projects, Traceify is one of the applications I mentioned as the supply chain traceability application, and Block Event is one of the earliest applications which is doing ticket traceabilities. And Human Fund is again a non-profit application where they trace charity funds coming out of Sri Lanka inside Sri Lanka. And DevNet is one of the ongoing projects in Sri Lanka, which is building a kind of a decentralized or more privacy-based and ownership-based social media platforms. And Niftron is what I'm working on, so which is simply as a blockchain as a service platform, which can be used to build any blockchain application on top of it without learning from scratch every blockchain. And when it comes to verify, it's a certification and document verification portal, and XCP is one of the first Sri Lankan projects launched cryptocurrencies out of Sri Lanka. So, which is basically selling domains, DNS based application where you can buy domains. So, you can buy TLDs, top level domains, for an amount of $1. So, which are the applications that are already built in Sri Lanka. And when it comes to blockchains, so blockchain, sometimes people misconcept as it's something like same as cloud, as a one technology. But what happens is blockchain is a technology, but there are multiple blockchain providers. So Bitcoin is first technology that used blockchain concept, but after that, Ethereum is using their own way of blockchain, and it's also called as Ethereum blockchain. And Stellar, Neo, Hyperledger, there are thousands of blockchains like this out there. So each of these blockchains are differ from the purpose that they serve. So when it comes to Bitcoin, it's purely based on money transactions, so valuable or it's kind of more like a investments where we buy bitcoins and we keep it as we can invest on that. But when it comes to Ethereum, it's always about running applications or hosting dApps on top of it and writing logics. And when it comes to Stellar, so you can write you can do application on top of Stellar as well, like supply chain. So, and many of the Sri Lankan projects I mentioned also use Stellar because of the cost effectiveness. And it's always focused more on micro transactions or micro fees. And when it comes to Neo, it has different purposes: Hyperledger, R3 Coda, EOS, more towards comes as a consortium or as private blockchains. And usually the type of blockchains, as I mentioned, you can categorize into public, private, and consortium or federated. And now we have hybrid blockchains as well. So each of these blockchains provide different services or different aspects. So public blockchains like Ethereum, Bitcoin, or Stellar, it's more towards open, and it's high trust, high security, and high scalability. But the problem is it's pretty much for openness, and then people can, I mean, if you're storing any data, you either need to encrypt and store it, and anyone can see what are the transactions happening. That is what they want to achieve it. But when it comes to private blockchains, it's used by mostly governments or banks or controlled entities where they don't want people to take this control, basically. So if it comes to public blockchain, everyone is same, so there's no hierarchy. But if they want to maintain that hierarchy, so they go with private blockchains where they can set the roles and all, and they can run these things on top of blockchain as blockchain, but with a limited amount of control and visibility. But the problem is it's not that secure because uh, you are hosting a limited amount of nodes, as I mentioned in the start. The security or the amount of trust that we can have on a blockchain is depends on how many nodes are running. So if there's a less amount of nodes, there's a high chance it can get compromised as well. And consortium also, it's similar to what private blockchain is doing. And when it comes to each blockchains, also you can do different analysis. Depends on the type of the blockchain, whether it's public or private, or what is the primary function of that, and what is the governance model, whether it's decentralized or non-profit, or it's a profitable one, and what is the time it takes to perform a transaction, or how much time it takes to confirming a transaction, and scalability or throughput of the amount of transaction is happened. So everything you can check it, and cost per transaction as well as a transaction fee or a gas fee that we need to pay for a blockchain. So if you take Bitcoin, it's usually pretty low in terms of transaction time. I mean, pretty high in terms of transaction time. So usually it takes like 15 to 30 minutes or sometimes 45 minutes to perform a transaction. And the best part is it makes sense for that use case because it's pretty much transferring your money. So if you're transferring like a 1 billion USDT from or 10 million USDT from USA to Sri Lanka, you need to go to a bank and then transfer it, and then they do all your background checks and everything, and before they transfer, and then it takes a lot of time and process to come to the Sri Lankan bank, and then you need to go and pay taxes as well as you need to pay a lot of transaction fee for these two parties, and then you can withdraw it, and then there also you need to do a lot of processes. So which roughly take like a week or something to do it in Sri Lanka if we are getting that much of money, apart from all the other regulations and rules that you need to go through. But the similar thing, you can transfer 1 million or 1 billion USDT from any party to another party in 30 to 45 minutes with the very less transaction fee. That is pretty much what Bitcoin is doing, and that is pretty much obvious. That is more user friendly and more important than what we are doing in the current process. But when it comes to Ethereum, the transaction time is usually 15 minutes, sometimes it's 7 to 15 minutes. And when it comes to Stellar or Neo, it's pretty less, where you can do transition in Stellar like 3 to 5 seconds. So each of these blockchains have different aspects and different benefits. So when you're doing a blockchain application, you need to have this kind of a chart to know what are the aspects you want from blockchain. So you can't build anything kind of a silver bullet applications where you have more decentralized and high transition throughput and fast transition and low cost. So you need to identify whether you need transparency, or whether you need security, or whether you need ownership, or data immutability, verification, anonymity, which aspect of blockchain you need for your application. So not all the applications need all of these things. Some needs multiple things. So you need to identify which are the aspect is important for your application, and then based on that you can select a blockchain. So one of the other things I want to touch as the last things, like blockchain opportunities. So as most of you are students or recent graduates, so you can look into the ways that you can get into the industry of blockchain or get into the blockchain domain. So as most of you are coming from software engineering background, so it's easy for you to start it with as a blockchain developer. So, and from there you can build it as a blockchain architects or solution architects. That is one of the pathways you can take. So blockchain developments means, as I mentioned, there are thousands of blockchain there. You need to identify which blockchain is more important, and you need to start with one of that blockchains and then build it and learn it from there. So easiest way is you can learn from Bitcoin or Ethereum and Australia, and then you can see once you learn one blockchain, it's very easy to learn other ones. But there's the learning curve every time is there, because not all the blockchains are built the same, as I mentioned. So there are different things will be there, but it's almost similar like how you're learning a different languages. So once you know one particular language, the for loops or the if conditions or anything that you're doing in this particular language, most of the times is same in the other one, but only the syntax and the way it works will differ, or some aspect will differ. So same applies to blockchain as well when you're learning each blockchains. And the other side is there are more opportunities for research analysts or project managers for blockchains, because blockchain is a technology, as I mentioned, it's not something similar like you're building a software application, because when you're building a blockchain, you need to be mindful of how the security works, how you are maintaining the decentralization, whether it's more centralized or how you're controlling that, how your privacy works, and how your ownership of the assets or the data works, and how cost effective it's because of the transaction fees and things. And if you're integrating any cryptos into that or any tokens into that, how economically, how stable that was. So that's where comes crypto economics or token economics. So multiple aspects involved. So it's very difficult for a person to master in all of these things, but it's good to know everything. But when you know multiple aspects of this, you can easily go as a blockchain project manager or as an architect level, where you can manage these projects or design these projects. And there are research analysis where they goes and analyze about a particular blockchain or particular use cases where they can build blockchains. And there are technical people like when it comes to data scientists or designers or quality engineers. So if it comes to QA or BA works, so business analysis or quality assurance works, what happens is it's totally different than how they work for any other application. So they need to know completely blockchain. So it seems something like, you're a blockchain engineer like converted to a QA or a BA. So then only you can actually do that, because you need to know how blockchain works and how transactions works, or how a blockchain connected to the real world application. Then only you can easily able to do these testings or do these analysis. And non-technical ones are there, like BA ones specifically. And apart from that, there are marketing specialist, what is one of the most important roles in the blockchain, where blockchain influencers or blockchain connecting with the blockchain influencers, or writing things, or content writers, or doing marketing for a blockchain project is most important aspect, especially if they are doing a crypto based ones. So blockchain marketing specialist is one of the key roles, and mostly it's done by third party companies or things. But if there's individual ones, they are doing it. It's pretty much one of the things that you can focus if you're interested in that area. And designing an application, or a UI UX person, if you want to be in that area, then again you need to know how to design a blockchain application, because blockchain applications UI works is pretty difficult, because you need to build it something more user friendly, and at the same time you need to not compromise your security or privacy or ownership. So which comes very difficult to design these applications with that user friendliness and balancing these aspects. So that is one of the other areas. And at last, like where you can start it is, as I mentioned, you can best thing is you can start with existing applications where you can see how it works and get familiar with that, like Brave or Steemit or else IPFS or Storj. And when you want to learn blockchain in a more technical way, it's the easiest one is you can go with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Australia, where there are plenty of resources. I mean, there are thousands of blockchains out there, but the latest blockchains you can't find that much of a resources to learn it, and the community support will be very less. But when you go to Bitcoin, Ethereem, Australia, it's pretty all there, and there's plenty of resources to learn, and the community support is very stable. So it's easiest way to start it. And if you really want to keen into learning blockchain, I would say like there are books like Mastering Bitcoin or Mastering Ethereum, which is a perfect start for someone to learn to blockchain. And as well as there are plenty of online resources out there from YouTube, Medium, and Slack. So all the blockchains, they have Slack groups or Telegram, Discord groups where you can go and ask questions and the community will support you. And apart from that, when it comes to content, it's always in the YouTube or else Medium where you can go and identify multiple useful contents out there, which you can simply find the same contents in paid courses as well out there. And if you want to follow it to a strict guide deadline and you want to learn it, I mean, courses would be a better options. So there are plenty of courses in Udemy, Coursera, and different platforms. And there are like blog geeks, so different YouTube channels in blockchain, also even Ion on Tech. So these channels also they offering blockchain courses out there, so you can go and learn these courses and certifications as well. So it's always like the resources out there, so it's about like where you can start. So basically you can find with the one blockchain, learn how the blockchain concepts works and why its trust is more matter and how these connections are working, and then find resources from these channels and get familiarized with that. And then the next step is you can simply start with a project. So it can be a university project, so it can be your pet projects where you do it in a leisure time. Start with a simple project, as I mean simply as transferring a money to a person or building a chat application where you can send uh, anonymity based privacy messages to another person. So if you can build these small applications, you know how blockchain works, and then you can go and build a more scalable and larger scale applications later. So that is pretty much about what I want to cover it today, and hope you got an idea about what is blockchain, how it works, and how other countries or how other use cases are built on top of it. So within this short period of time, I just want to give you an overall idea about what is blockchain and how it works, to give you an initial kind of a kickstarter to the blockchain. So once you get into that, so once you get these informations, I hope like you get some valuable information from this, so you can simply go by yourself and you can search more about how you can build applications or how you can build blockchain use cases. And if you are more interested on blockchain, so you can simply join Colombo Blockchain Meetup. We have a Facebook group as well where we organize regular meetups, and you can follow from there. And there are learning materials also involved in that. And we have a Blockchain Made Simple, which is another Facebook closed group, which is you can search it as Blockchain Made Simple. So in that group, we do multiple sessions, different, I mean, once in a month, and we share about different ways of how you can build blockchain applications. So what are things that you need to focus on building blockchain applications in more technical and non-technical aspects. So those are the resources you can follow up and learn it as well. So thank you guys. And if you have any questions or if you want, you can directly ask me now, or else if you want, you can scan this QR code and connect with my LinkedIn, or else you can send me emails as well. So I'm happy to help you if you have any questions on blockchain. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Shamilan. Participants, if you have any questions regarding blockchain, now you can, it's time to ask the questions. So if you have any questions, you can post those questions in the chat, and the host will be posted those questions in the chat, and Mr. Shamilan will give you a reply for that questions. Participants, if you have questions, it's now your time. Yes, it seems to be there is no questions to ask from the our facilitator. So a kind remind, yeah, we got a one question from a participant. Can you please explain about cryptographic hash functions?
Yeah, so cryptography hash function is one of the kind of a core component in the blockchain. So I didn't touch much on that today, as it's I'm going to do it as a separate a lot of session on that how that works. But basically, what is that is its hash functions is simple as you're doing any SHA-256, or else we have different hashing mechanisms like hash 256 MD5. So what happens is whatever the information that you're passing inside that, it will be generate your random string which contains like usually 64 character, which is a mix of numbers and characters. So the benefit is the information that you pass. For an example, if you're passing like Apple as a capital A and starting capital A, and you're passing Apple, it will be create a different string. And if you do a small change, as if you're putting capital A to simple A, or a full stop or a space, the hash will be totally different. So that is one of the main things that is used in blockchain. So whatever the transition that are happening, whether it's a sender or what is the amount of money it's transferred from whom to whom, what is the timestamp, all of these informations go into a hashing function and they create the hash. So once that hash is comes, if someone goes inside and change the sender or a receiver or a small zero into the money or anything else that is changed, or even a timestamp, it's totally changed the hash mechanism. So once the hash mechanism is changed, you can simply cross check that if there's anything, if it's matching, then you know that it's same. But if it's not matching, you know that something is changed or something happens wrong. So that is one of the main thing hash is used there. And it's not only for data, but you can simply use it for files or anything that you want to store. It's images or files or videos. You can put it through hash function and you can generate a hash and you can use it. So you can simply go and find like uh, hash generators online and you can experience with that. And hash is one of the core components, as I mentioned, inside blockchain, where each transaction go through a hash. So there's a whole tree structure called Merkle tree, where each transaction get into hash, and then they combine multiple transactions into generate this root hash, and then that root hash is goes against the block, and they generate a block hash as well. And then every block is inserted to a blockchain. The whole chain will be hashed once in a while to make that chain as well. So that is the basically where how it's used in blockchain and the importance of hash. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. And also, meantime, a kind reminder to the participants, there is a link available to get your feedback about the session. So we are pleased if you could go through that form and give a feedback about the session. And the next question is, what are the drawbacks of using blockchain in Sri Lanka?
Uh, there's no drawbacks of using blockchain in Sri Lanka. So the only thing is you need to be more mindful when you're building blockchain application in Sri Lanka, comparing or thinking about our users, because that is one of the challenges that we faced whenever we build different client applications for Sri Lanka, because the users are pretty much new to blockchain or new to blockchain concepts, so they don't know what is private keys or how to manage it, because the main aspect in blockchain is the private keys. Once you lose these private keys, you can't reset these keys because there's no one you can reset as a decentralized one. So it's more like you lose a password, you can reset it. So that is one of the aspects. So if you're doing it for a particular target audience who knows these things, then it's pretty easy. But if you're doing for a wide range of audience, so it's pretty difficult. So those things you need to be more mindful on building it. And we have different mechanisms as you can do, reducing the privacy, so reducing the ownership, and then you can do different aspects that people can easily interact with applications in a more user-friendly manner. But there's no such drawbacks that you can building, but you have to think about these different aspects which you don't need to think when you're building a application for other countries. But the other thing is, if it is comes to cryptos, which is a use case in blockchain, so which is not about blockchain, but cryptos are kind of illegal in Sri Lanka. So there's no law right now. There's illegal or legal, but it always falls under the anti-money laundering. So that is one of the aspects where you can't build cryptocurrency-based applications in Sri Lanka or issuing cryptocurrencies, but you are free to build blockchain applications or using blockchain technology to build applications for healthcare or supply chain or any industry that you want.
So moving on to the next question, could you explain about the measures taken to prevent uh, Sorry, from a perspective of of an investor, what would be the best crypto to invest?
Um, Crypto investment, it's pretty difficult. So I mean, I never give advices on which coin to invest because that is not the right thing to do. But I'll give you an idea. Like if you want to invest on something, so I'll make sure that. Yeah. So if you want to invest on which crypto to be selected as the best one to invest, so it's always,
Recording
I mean, it's
stopped.
always depends on
Recording
multiple
in
aspects when it
progress.
comes to cryptos. So the prices goes up depends on the token economics, the crypto economics that is built, or else based on the community, or else based on influencers, as we've seen past, based on Elon Musk, what happens to Bitcoin, and same as the people involved in that and the use of that cryptocurrency. That is the main purpose of that. So when you're investing on crypto, the best thing is you have to understand the whole ecosystem over that project. And each of these coins are not comes as just coins like Bitcoin. There's a use case for that. So if you take some coins, then you have to put this coin to do some aspects. So if you take Ethereum, you use this coin to build smart contracts. So that is the use case of that. So as more and more smart contracts are built and more transactions that happen to interact with the smart contracts, the Ethereum price will goes up automatically, compare irrespective of the holdings or the pumping and dumping mechanisms in Bitcoins. So that is one of the aspects you need to know, like how the coin is built and how the structure of the coins looks like and what is the use case of that coin. So as those are clear, and if you see that potential parties are involved in that, so then you can easily go and put your money into those coins.
So next question is about could you explain about the measures taken to prevent from future risks on blockchain?
So when it comes to blockchain future risk, I mean, there are potentially identified very few risks, especially the quantum computer is one of the things that is more popular in the blockchain side, where people say that uh, quantum computers can break these blockchains, so specifically Bitcoin and a couple of others, because based on their hashing mechanism again. So they are using a curve algorithm where that can be easily break by the super efficient machines, which can't be break by at the moment any of the computers. But when it comes to quantum computers, it can easily calculate that in a more fast manner, and they can break these things. So that is one of the disadvantages that people are seeing now. But again, like crypto or a blockchain community is more advanced in terms of thinking and preventing these things. So they have most of the blockchains that we can see coming now. It's always comes as a quantum resistant blockchains. Even from the neo blockchain which comes into the 17th. So from that, most of the blockchain comes as quantum resistant ones. So that risk is eliminated. And the other thing is, I mean, an interesting story I can maybe tell, like in future, like I mean, in past, like there's some Reddit blog you can see, like someone mentioned it as, I mean, it's not something proven one, but then like it's something we can take into this point where he mentioned as he traveled from future to past. So he mentioned as I mean, blockchain is kind of not a good technology when it's specifically about Bitcoin. So not about blockchain, specifically about the Bitcoin, and he's kind of against Bitcoin, and he mentioned that a valid point where the chances are like if the whole world is shut down, as is everything is connected by internet, right? So when the whole world is shut down, and if there's only 2 or 3 machines out there which is have internet or power, they can simply modify the whole Bitcoin structure, because when the internet comes, it's always relies on the next machine to, it's like peer-to-peer. So it's always rely on the which is active machine and get the updates. So then the whole chain is changed. Then there can be situations where the whole blockchain can be break. So that is happen, that can happen for Bitcoin or Ethereum or anything. So they mentioned this into the 13-14 period of time. And what happens after that is most of the blockchains hosted their nodes in even satellites as well. So something like out of the world where they hosted these things in multiple satellites, where they have multiple nodes running on that. So even a situation where the whole world is gone powerless, still the nodes are running in the out of the world, I mean out of the planet, and then they can sync up whenever they want. So they usually take these primitive mechanisms because two things is, I mean, it's one of the technologies where the more money is involved, and the other thing is it's one of the technologies where more people involved to actually break these monopolies or break these hierarchies of third-party controls or middleman controls. So they always try to do more than what happens in other technologies.
Yes, so next question is what would you suggest as the best place to start learning blockchain for a beginner?
As I mentioned, like you can start with, as if you are completely new to blockchain, it's a good way to start with the Bitcoin blockchain. So then you can, because two reasons: one is resources and it's easy to learn. So you can easily go through that and completely understand top to bottom how the blockchain works. So once you understand that, then the next step is you can go to Ethereum, and once you understand that, you can build applications. So Ethereum or Bitcoin is would be the good ideal starting point for a software developer or a developer who want to build applications. And Stellar is one of the good things, but I won't suggest you to go and learn with Stellar, because Stellar is, you can easily build application in Stellar because it comes as SDKs. So they have software development kits in JavaScript, Java, PHP, and different languages where you can easily use to build applications. But then you can't build actual smart contracts, or you can't run smart contracts, so you can't get that real effect of how other blockchain works like Ethereum or Bitcoin. So for that, so always I suggest you to go with Ethereum or Bitcoin to learn. And then we are building applications. You can go and build it in either Ethereum or else Stellar, and you can experience those things. Those are the good starting points. And as I mentioned, YouTube, Medium are the easiest resources where you can find, and there are plenty of courses available and YouTube channels doing everyday vlogs or uh, sessions about blockchains as
So, moving to the final question, is there a reason why the dark web transactions are based on Bitcoin?
well. It was like that previously, so now we can't say like that, because I mean, the reason that behind it is initially in 2012, 10, 12, 13, 14 period of time, it's always used for, people always blame that it's used for like drug dealings or dark web transactions and illegal money transactions. But then the reason that they used for those things is it's about privacy. So when someone involves something in dark web, they don't want to reveal the identities, so that is the basic. So they want to use something that they can still transfer this money to another party in a trusted manner without revealing the identities, as well as maintaining that anonymity. So that is one of the reasons used. But nowadays we can't make that claim, because even last couple of weeks ago, you can see like El Salvador is a country that completely going on top of Bitcoin. So where they uh, made the Bitcoin as the currency. So anyone in that country can use Bitcoin to buy, even from a coconut to anything that they purchase, they can use Bitcoin to buy it. So nowadays it's transformed from that to this. So it's always like any technology you take, like there's a bad and there's a good thing as well. So it depends on how we use it. But again, the blockchain is something that provides anonymity and privacy, and that is one of the reasons that it's mostly used those days in dark.
So thank you, sir. So I would like to invite Master Sachit to give the vote of thanks on behalf of the organizing committee and as the president of the Uva Wellassa first committee of Uva Wellassa University. Mr. Sachit, it's over to you.
Thank you, Brian. Can you guys hear me right?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. So our guest speaker, Mr. Shamilan Samasundaram, and all the participants, on behalf of First Community of UW and First Community of IID, I would like to extend a very hearty vote of thanks to our guest speaker, Mr. Shamilan Samasundaram, for sharing the important facts related to today's topic. And I would like to thank all members of both UW and IIT First Communities who helped to make this event a success. Last but not least, I would like to give my vote of thanks to all the participants. And thank you. Over to you, Brian.
So thank you, Master Sachit. And with that, we have come to the end of another open bracket session. And we are signing off for the today with the hope of meeting you soon with another open bracket session. So thank you all for joining with us today, and hope to see you again soon. And good night, everyone.